welcome to Money Matters TV. My name's Patty Tawadros. I am hosting the show today with Dave Emery from Planning Capital Management. Dave, it's good to see you today.
Good to see you today.
So, pretty exciting. A little bit later, we're going to be joined by our guest, who's a cybersecurity expert. So, all your pressing questions about how you might get hacked, keep them at the ready, let's say.
Absolutely,
You're
yeah.
in finance, Dave, especially
Mhm.
by all the letters after your name.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
right now, things are going kind of crazy in the market.
Yeah. It's certainly this year to date, there's definitely been some market volatility. A lot has to do with the raising of interest rates by the Feds, inflation. Inflation is definitely a part of it. The war over in the Ukraine and supply chain. So all that is definitely combined for some unsettledness in the marketplace, in the market, and hopefully things will start settling themselves out.
So I heard that the Fed could raise the interest rate multiple times over this year. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I guess you and I were just recently chatting about is how does that impact real estate? So
Mhm.
certainly the the borrowing, the cost of lending, when they raise interest rates is impacted when you go to get a mortgage. It costs more to get a mortgage, and that in turn makes affordability is a drag on affordability. So it's real estate has done quite well. So we'll see what happens moving forward.
If the interest rates seem to have gone up about 1 full point. I saw a sign when I was driving downtown. I mean, I know it changes day to day,
Right.
but it seems like it's a full point so far. Is that
No, I think it's at least that. I'm also hearing with regards to real estate that more and more you're hearing people. It's just like people that have cash are the ones that get that real estate when there's multiple offers. So it's just I guess a real estate market that we haven't seen for a little bit of time. That's for sure.
I was reading an article the other day about whether this is a bubble and it's going to burst because, of course, I think, these are amazing deals. Could we sell our house and then go move in with one of our parents, for
Hmm.
like a short window and then rebuy something amazing when it tanks? They just think about how you can game the system. And
Hmm.
what I read was that markets, maybe like Philadelphia, wouldn't necessarily tank. It's the smaller markets that have seen these massive increases in value. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, so I guess what I'd say is a couple thoughts. One is definitely the real estate market has changed, post COVID, from the standpoint that now many more people can work remotely. So I think that has had an impact on residential real estate when you can work from home, as opposed to prior to COVID, not as many people maybe were allowed that. Um, yeah, regarding a bubble, I think it's also, and I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I think it's this whole demographic of the millennials getting into the home buying demographic. I mean, it's just a huge population. So if you have a large population that's going to be buying houses and they haven't kept up with that demand, then I guess that could lead to prices, stabilizing or not coming back down. I mean, again, I'm not an expert on this, but those are a couple of my thoughts.
And what about as far as investing with this being, I mean, I've seen the graphs and the stock market is still above where it
Mhm.
was at a low in the past. So I know that it's ebbs and flows and we should be in it for the long haul. We're not day trading on this show.
Right.
So where do you see things going?
I guess in general, with regards to portfolios, is to be diversified between stocks and fixed income bond types of products, and understand the components of your portfolio and how they behave. It's certainly when the market is has the volatility that it has. A lot of the conversations that I have with clients come back to talking through again the tolerance for risk and reconfirming that, and then talking through if their lifestyle has changed, what what has changed and what adjustments make sense within the portfolio. And of course, if need be, if you need to make some changes, then you look at those items that hopefully components that have not adjusted as much as maybe some of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of understanding your overall portfolio and your needs for what the portfolio needs to do for you.
The thing I find interesting, and I know this isn't your area of expertise, is that whole cryptocurrency. And what I find so fascinating about it is I just saw a TV commercial, and I rarely watch television with live commercials, but I saw a commercial for a platform that's allowing you to invest, not for a Roth IRA, but for the other kind of IRA,
Mm-hmm.
pre-tax
Okay.
money into
Mm-hmm.
a crypto portfolio and then convert it later. And the way they advertised it, because they're majorly tanking right now, that we're in it for the long haul. That's
Right.
how they wanted you to think about it. And when you look at that graph and you see those
Mm-hmm.
dips and how they recover and go to the next high, it's kind of tempting to just put a little taste in there and see what happens.
No, I yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I guess the one thing with cryptocurrency is there's a number of different forms, Bitcoin, Ether, and a number of different medians, I guess, of cryptocurrency, and understanding them is, I think, the best advice. And anything you don't fully understand, you should just, be okay to understand that if it may not perform the way you would hope it would be, is what
Yeah.
I'd say.
So I think the next hot topic is college education and kids getting their tuition just written off. Do you see it happening? It's all over the news.
No, that's it's certainly been in the news for a while. And the interesting thing about the whole student loan is it's the size of the student loan debt in this country. It's something well over $1 billion, or $1 trillion in student loan debt across the country. So, and hey, think about it. I mean, that student loan debt is backed up by the person's ability to make money. So it's not like it's backed up by like if you have a house, that's backed up by the value of your house. So it's kind of interesting when you think about it that way. And to your question, are they going to write off student loan debt? Boy, I mean that's a big number. It's a real big number. And I guess my thought on that is also the federal government, they do make money on student loans. I mean, a Parent Plus loan interest rate is somewhere around 8 or 9%.
God, that's so high.
Yeah, the Stafford student loan taken out in the student's name is somewhere, again, this is ballpark, somewhere around, 3 or 4%. So, interest, that's what the government makes interest off that. Right now, through the pandemic, they have, I don't recall the exact phrase for it, but basically you don't have to pay your student loans right now. They put them in like forbearance, or, it's kind of on a hold.
Mm-hmm.
But the one piece, if you can make your student loan payments right now, the payments that you make go purely toward principal, which helps to pay down things. Is the government's not charging you interest right now. So that's something that that if you can afford it, that may make some sense. But I don't know. That's just such a large number. I think it's closer to 1.5 or 1.7 trillion, but in student loan debt across the country, that's just a very, very large number.
What I read was that there's the potential they might write off a small portion of that debt for each person, which still makes me mad because I paid all of it. Or I should say my parents paid all of it. It was like they're going to start giving refunds to those that paid for everything. That would be
nice. Right. Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, what is quote fair? I mean, that's one of the big things that I see is a lot of times people will go to college and they won't fully understand the impact that they're, of taking on that debt. The other thing is student loan debt is not dischargeable through bankruptcy. So, if you run into tough economic times, if the student loans are in your name, the government's not going to let you out of it. So,
well, that's terrifying for those people.
It is, So it's something I'm sure will continue on. So.
All right, well, let's get to our question from the audience. So Nancy Helmer in Philadelphia, thank you for sending your question in. She asks, how can I save costs of a college education during inflation?
Well, that's I think we talked a little bit about that. A couple of thoughts. One is if you're asking how do you save for college during these times, I would say, you know, investing into a 529 plan, which is basically a vehicle that the proceeds grow in the 529 tax free, and then if you use it for college costs, it comes out tax free. So if you're investing in those types of vehicles and you're doing it by yourself, you might consider using a target date fund, because then they constantly will adjust until your student comes to college, and then it's invested more, very conservatively when they start arriving to college. Another avenue people kind of may overlook is there's tax. The tax code also creates some incentives for going to college. There's tax credits. And that's an area that I'd have at least ask a question to your tax preparer as to whether you can qualify for some of these tax credits. And then I guess lastly is sticker price of colleges isn't always what you end up paying to attend college. So it makes sense to talk to financial aid and see if there's avenues that can help to reduce the cost of their tuition and fees to have your student attend college. So, but with anything, I'd run this by your financial and your tax advisors.
That's good information. So if you have questions, here's how to send them in.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
So here's the part I'm most excited about, cybersecurity conversations. So we are going to be joined by Todd Mitchell from Cybersecurity for Biz.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey, Todd.
Nice to meet you.
So for those who don't know, could you give us the big picture of what is cybersecurity?
So cybersecurity used to be called information assurance a decade or so ago, and it's basically protecting information and your computer systems. And that could be from human error, from hacking, from internal sources inside your company, or equipment malfunction, whatever. You want to protect the data that's on that machine.
And how did you get into it? Sorry, I'm super excited.
Well, I started out as going through college. I was taking classes on, in one of my semesters, I was the last one to sign up for some classes and had a very small sample to pick from. And I ended up taking a security class, and I thought it was very, very interesting. And I kind of changed my focus, and all of my classes became security classes after that. And then I had a job working for the government, writing software. And part of the software, well, all of the software was going to reside on the secret internet through the military. So cybersecurity was a huge part of that, making sure that it met all the requirements and making sure that the data was staying safe no matter what. And during the course of doing that, I had a couple of my personal friends who owned their own business, and they got into some issues and lost all their data. And I was trying to find them help. And I found out that there are very few resources available to an entrepreneur or a micro business. Most of the ads you see on TV at night for all these big cybersecurity companies, they're all focused on Fortune 500 companies and large businesses. Sometimes they'll work with small businesses, but their idea of small business is like 500 employees, 500 computers. So if you're working in a small office with 2 or 3 people and a couple of computers, they're just not within your reach. So I decided to open my own business, and that's my focus.
So what's the most common cause of data breach?
So the most common cause is actually human error. About 90-something% of data breaches are caused by human error. Now, you never hear that in the news, so it's kind of interesting. You always hear, the Colonial Pipeline got hacked, or, Home Depot, Target, some of the bigger ones over the years. And they always have some highly technical, ransomware or this name that they give a certain virus or whatever. But the bottom line, if you trace it back to the root causes, some employee that didn't have proper training and didn't know any better clicked a button that let that onto their computer. Or you have a small office where they don't think there's a big risk and they're sharing passwords, they're sharing user accounts. You might have a business owner that's too cheap to pay for the pro plan on, I'm just using an example like QuickBooks that gives you, 5 or 6 licenses. So all your accountants can each have a different license. Instead, you pay for the basic plan and you only get 1 license, and they all 5 use the same username and password to log in. And then, you end up firing one, and a few years later, you have disgruntled employees out there running around that still have access to your QuickBooks because you never changed your password. These types of things. That's why a lot of it gets categorized in my mind, and according to some of the statistics, it all falls into human error is the biggest cause.
So we always hear about, and we're talking about real estate earlier, when there are escrow accounts and money has to get transferred. So many people have been scammed into sending the money, and it's all fake. People are cloning email addresses. Does that fall into cybersecurity in your opinion?
Yes, it does. I actually have that. I would call that a phishing attack. Phishing attack specifically is through the email with a certain kind of email to make you click a button. But the type of thing that you were just discussing kind of falls into what we call social engineering. I don't need to spend hours trying to hack into your network when I can ask you to take some quiz on Facebook and ask you what your cat's name is, ask you what your daughter's middle name is, what school you went to in 3rd grade, whatever. You see all these little cute quizzes floating around. And if you stop and think about it, those are the same questions you answered to get the security on your bank account. So now I have all the answers, and I don't need to hack into your account. I mean, I can hack into your account because you just gave me your security question.
So just having a password protected router, is that enough?
It's very interesting that you're asking about a router, because that is not enough. That is a router. I consider it this way. I use this analogy. Think of this as your house. The router is the gate, the front at the end of your driveway, the locked gate. It is the entrance to your entire estate. And that is the main place that you need to have protected. And everybody gets a router. Everybody has internet at home these days. And you get your router, and, Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, whoever, and they drop it off, and they have this really long, complicated Wi-Fi password that they give you, or force you to make your own or whatever. And so you think you're protected because your Wi-Fi network is protected. But what you don't realize is, out of the box, the password to get into the router itself, to change the settings inside your router, the username is user, and the password is admin if it's a Linksys router. If it's some of the other brands, the password is password. If it's Comcast, the password's high speed. So the first thing you need to do is go in there and change that password so that nobody else can get inside your router and change the settings, because somebody could just go in there and we have this thing called a whitelist, which basically means a certain device can always get on the network no matter what. And I could go in and add my device as a whitelist. So now I can always get into your system even when you change your password. So it is imperative that people go in there and change these settings and change the password to the router. Very first step everybody needs to do. The other reason behind that too is a lot of these settings are set to the lowest setting by default. So you have to go in there and click the medium or high or whatever you feel is appropriate. The lowest settings don't do a good job of blocking things as they're coming in. You want your router's job, secondary job is a firewall. And what a firewall does is stop all incoming traffic that you didn't ask for. It's kind of a filter like you wish you could have on your mailbox, where it just kicked all the junk mail right back out onto the street and wouldn't let it into your mailbox.
Wow.
That's insane. So you're talking about passwords. Let's talk about the actual password. I don't know. Should it be password 123?
No, it should not. So a good template for a strong password is you want small letters, capital letters, numbers, and symbols all mixed together. And you want it to be at least 12 characters long. And the reason for the length is basically it's a math problem. So the complexity of using all of those different keys gives you 109 keys on an American keyboard. So if you use all 9 of those, or all 109 of those, and you're 8 characters long, and you make it 9 characters, you just exponentially increased it by 109. So if you make it 10, then 11, then 12, you're taking what somebody could crack your password in a couple of hours and turning it into years by adding those extra characters. It grows very fast. So that's the best way to have a password. It doesn't really matter, what you make it out of. Some people use like a long phrase, the first letter of each word in their favorite book, or something like that. You just want to mix it up with letters, numbers, and symbols, and you want to avoid any word that can get caught. Let me rephrase that. Any word that can be found in a dictionary. And the reason for that is, if you've ever gone into a Word document or a PDF and you click the little find button and you look for a certain word, like accounting, in a PDF that's 50 pages long, and how fast it comes back with a list of everywhere it found that word. That's how fast it can find your password in a dictionary.
Interesting. So what about multi-factor authentications? How does that fold into passwords and being protected?
So that's multi-factor authentication. First of all, is using, there's basically 3 kinds of things for identification. There's what you know, which would be a password. There's who you are, which is some personally identifiable, like a fingerprint or a retina scan, something like that. Then there's a what you know, which is kind of the security questions of, who your 3rd grade teacher was or something. So the best way to secure your accounts is to use multi-factor authentication. The most popular thing going on right now is where you sign into your bank account and they send you a code to your cell phone and you got to punch it in, because that fell onto the who you are, because instead of a fingerprint, it's you with your personal phone. So that gives a second layer of, I might be able to get your password and I can hack into your bank account, but I'm on the other side of the planet, so I don't have your cell phone and can't get that code.
Right.
How often should you change your password?
They used to tell everybody to change them 30, 90 days, things like that. Recently, the government's standards, NIST, is called NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, that's funded by the federal government. And Microsoft and a couple of the other big tech companies actually did a lot of research on this and found out that it didn't actually provide any benefit to changing passwords. So you're better off having a good, strong, secure password, and you know what it is, and just keep it going. So the reasons why you want to change passwords is, especially if you're in a business, you want to have people changing passwords if new people come in, or old, somebody leaves. On a personal level, it's like you get a divorce and your ex has got all your passwords, it's time to change them. If you think one of your passwords was compromised, then you definitely want to change your passwords, but there's no longer a need to change them every month just because.
So before we run out of time, can you talk about backups and things like Dropbox and Just like, do you need multiple types of backups?
I think you need multiple types of backups. I always recommend that people have whatever critical information on their computer that they think they can't live without should definitely be backed up. I personally back up everything to a local external hard drive that I can keep separate from my computer. And I also have it syncing to the cloud. So the Google Drives, the OneDrive, the Dropbox, I would have your files saved there and have an external hard drive copy. That way you're double protected.
And are sites like QuickBooks, when you pay for the online version, or Dropbox, are those the backups there? Are they really backing things up and you can trust that? Or do we need to keep local copies of our QuickBook files?
Well, and that's exactly the thing. You're putting your trust into that company to do something safe with your data. And then what happens if they turn into be one of these Enrons or something that just totally goes out of business and disappears? That's why I always keep a local copy on an external hard drive or on my computer's hard drive.
And last question, anything from you, Dave?
Yeah, I guess is there any other things that you'd like to leave with the audience before we start wrapping it up? I mean, this has been some great information. I mean, what one takeaway can or two that audience can implement to be safer as a personal consumer?
Yes. So I think the big takeaway of this is like I was kind of hinted to at the beginning is a lot of the data breaches are caused by human error. So just take a look at what you're doing and how you're doing it. If you're writing passwords down on a sticky note, sticking them on the side of your monitor, or you and 4 other people have the access code to get into that computer or do your QuickBooks or do your email account, you might want to change the way you're doing things.
Thanks for joining us. I'm sure people will be reaching out to you because it's a very terrifying topic to talk about, especially if you can lose all your business files. Thanks also to Dave for joining me.
Thank you.
Next
Next week, of fun.
It is fun. I always wish we can talk for longer. Next week, our guest is Jim Lockwood from the Lockwood Group. So make sure you tune in. It's going to be a great conversation for sure.